not start taking mindfulness or my personal mental health seriously until about 3.5 years ago.
Hmm.
And so it is a constant, it takes constant attention, constant work, and constant attention to keep me present and engaged in that process. So the answer is it's pretty significant struggle then, because I will be, um, someone could drive by exceeding a posted speed limit, and while I'm having that meditation, and I will have a flare up of like, why would you exceed a stated speed limit? A bunch of humans spent a bunch of time figuring out, hey, how fast is it safe to go around here without killing other human beings?
Yeah.
Just do that. It's that easy to just go the thing. And then they put up a sign that said, hey, we figured out how fast people can, the average speed that people can go around here and not
Friendly
kill.
reminder, if you could just keep doing this so we can have less dead pedestrians, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Hey, we put a lot, we tracked it. We wrote down a bunch of stuff. We did a bunch of
Oh.
math, and we did it because we're also humans, and we just care about keeping a bunch of
We
us alive.
we don't want to get by cars. Doug, I hate to do this to you.
Yeah.
You have just passed away.
Yes.
You have gone on to meet your maker,
Mhm.
whoever they may be in your mind. And they have said to you,
Is it okay if
Doug,
they are not a they? If
it
it's
can
okay
be
if they're not a,
whatever.
okay, gotcha.
In your mind, your conception of this thing, we have to allow for some ability to communicate between the two of you,
Mm-hmm.
or else this mental exercise would be, it might be interesting. Maybe you guys dance together. I would love to see that. But your maker says they will answer one question about your life specifically, Doug, or about life in general.
Mm.
What are you going to ask?
So it can be just about life in general.
It can be. It can be about a specific thing about your life. If you have a greater question about what is about, it can be, as I've said, tell me what really happened with JFK. Who really
Oh,
killed JFK? It can be something
can
along the
it be
lines
as
of,
broad as to what degree can a human perceive universal truth?
of course, yes,
Is that
great.
too broad?
No, it is your afterlife. It is your one question. It's your one phone call with your maker.
Yeah, I'd ask something in the range of what are the truths that a human can perceive, or what are the truths of existence that a human can perceive, knowing full well that there might come back, hey, there's no such thing as truth. So,
Mm,
or something like that. But I think I'd be seeking some understanding of what a human is capable of perceiving, because I would
yes.
say that's my life's journey and the source of a lot of frustration and joy.
Can I nail down some definitions first? When you speak of universal truth, can you the
I think I
nature
might.
of reality?
Can I? Yeah, yeah. I'll back that
Of
out
course,
to be
great.
existential truth. Yeah.
I would like you to elaborate a little bit further. So how reality exists when we are not perceiving it as a subject?
Yeah. The core nature of existence. I don't know. Reality is a tough one for me because I doesn't it seem like something has to be able to perceive
In order
because
for there to, like,
to be
it
real.
requires both a subject and
Maybe,
an object.
yeah, like uh, something I enjoy is darkness because darkness doesn't need light, but light needs darkness to define it. Darkness doesn't need light to define it.
Hmm. Is that true? I don't want to go down this
That
rabbit hole
that that is
too quickly.
that is something that I
That
hold. That's something that I hold as something that I perceive as true. I perceive that darkness doesn't need anything.
that it's not defined as the absence of light. It's not one. It's not oppositionally defined, is what you're saying.
No, yeah, I think dark. uh, yeah, I think darkness just is. And it's only when you add light that you say, oh, well, light is the darkness is defining the parameters of your light. But if the light wasn't there, I can't say that it would
Would
be
this
darkness, and I can't say
constitute?
that it wouldn't be darkness. I
Mhm.
just say that it is
Would
undefinable.
this constitute one of your universal truths? Is darkness a thing that is actual, or is light a thing that's actual? Again, I just want to kind of massage into where we're going with what you are. These the noble truths of like what does honesty mean? What is love? Is it more? But if I were to somehow view the world through the eyes of a bat, would it look the same as it does through my eyes? Is it, if we were to peel away all sensory perception, what is this thing that's there?
I think I'd probably start by focusing on whatever a human could perceive, and then
Hmm.
try and get goad more out of that, trying to coax as much as they
Yeah.
could in terms of like, because if I ask like, well, what of existential truth can humans perceive, and then they say, well, they can perceive this or that, or they can perceive this amount or this percentage, then that I might be able to get a conversation going about,
Hmm.
hey, so how about those bats, huh? How about
Yeah, you just use
crickets,
it for an
man?
icebreaker until we can
Yeah,
get deeper into. Yeah,
yeah,
hopefully this maker is really effusive and wants to speak about universal
because
truths.
there's nothing about me that is uniquely human, from my cellular makeup. So I can only be so interested in humanity, but it's the place that I have can start with you right now, because it's as much of a grasp over reality as I hold is the stuff that's going on in my mind as I'm talking to you. But I think that's probably, yeah.
I understand. What is this a universal truth? And again, it feels too nebulous. That feels a little bit too. I would like a specific. Is the
Oh,
purpose of life love? Is that what you believe to be a universal truth, or
I,
is it truly the nature of reality?
I am looking for something more specific than that. And maybe we can get to it by taking this tact,
Great.
which is I am interested in connection. I am interested in how everything is connected.
Yes.
And so a thought will pop up in my mind to say, well, maybe that's what dark matter is, the attempt to try and get everything connected again, to make everything
Mm.
connected, because light is what destroyed unity, or this is just a story that I'm telling,
Mm.
uh, but what is it that connects everything? Because there is no nothingness. There is.
Okay.
So what is it that connects it all?
Oh, it's a base energy. It's called blank. That's the answer. Would that be a satisfying answer for you? All it is it's vibrating particles, and they just happen to exist. Some have this kind, some have this kind, and then it was just this force. So it's a force.
That might be enough, because it at least would call, because again, I'm not the brightest monkey. I don't need that much. I just need a
Give
little
yourself some
bit.
credit. Like, but there must be a reason you want this data at all. Even if you don't need that much, there must be some desire or itch or unknowing thing that you are plagued by. And I'm using plague because you said specifically it has been the source of your whole life struggle to some degree of trying to figure out what these universal truths are.
Well, because I've been working my way to either explore, justify, scientifically examine these reasons for life that have been presented to me, and
Mhm.
I'm never finding a satisfactory answer.
Can we get into can you give me some specifics? Can you tell me there's this aspect of a relationship that you had that I'm attempting to figure out why did it go this way based on is there something that sticks out to you as a specific time in which you attempted to search for these kind of answers because something in your life felt
Oh, sure. I mean, I think
queasy? Yeah.
the most obvious one is Christianity, and I have a long, intense relationship with Christianity, and trying to use the materials presented to me by various uh, organizational elements of Christianity to help me navigate what truth is, or what the reason why existence is, or how things are
Hmm.
connected. And that was probably the biggest driving force of me moving away from Christianity, is a lack of satisfactory information and just a lot of lazy um, explanations, and
Hmm.
uh, things that were so human centric. Like everything's going to be have a degree of human centricity
Hmm.
to it if we're doing it. But it was just like none of the other stuff matters, just people.
Yeah.
It was like you're not even taking anything else into account. Uh,
Were you raised Christian?
uh, Wonderfully enough, my parents were quite kind this way. They both had very negative, uh, strict Catholic upbringings.
Hmm.
And so Catholicism was kind of like their first stop. But they tried to, because they were doing it themselves, they tried to expose us to a bunch of other Christian based faith systems outside of Catholicism. So we explored a lot of the Protestant options out there, a lot of them Catholic esque with the.
And at what point did you determine the failure to explain adequately? I'm not getting a good explanation from Protestantism, and I don't. I no longer want to follow this. Is there a time in your life?
Yes. It probably the most significant fissure, would that be the right
Yeah.
term to be used? Yeah, the most significant one would be I did a Christian based study abroad in China,
Hmm.
and that experience, which removed the big idea of the Chinese people as a monolith,
Hmm.
and the degree of just all of the good and bad of humanity that I experienced there, caused me to come back and go, no,
Hmm.
you know, there's no way that Christianity is holding truths if you're trying to, if you think you're trying to save these people, or you think you're sending me here to try and teach these people something that they don't know, or expose them to a level of humanity or righteousness, or universal truth that they don't understand. You, you got to
So
be kidding
from
me.
that,
Because
from that
I learned because of the amount that I learned there. It was just like I am learning. I have nothing to give these people.
So were you going? Were you brought there with an understanding? Was it a mission of sorts of like you were attempting to spread the word of the gospel, or?
Yeah, well, it was all Christians. It was through a college church, through a church that was somehow associated with Appalachian State University. And it was all students from college going there to study, but bringing a crap load of Bibles with us and ready to
To
engage.
hand
And
out just in case, just in case someone's short a Bible.
yeah, and like
Hmm.
our when we were practicing Chinese phrases ahead of time, it was like, making sure that we were armed with
Hmm.
conversation starters around Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It sounds to some degree like like this is some sort of door-to-door a knife sales company that infiltrated
Oh,
your college and was like, "We're going to use the same tactics, but we're going to spread the word of God, send them there, teach them a few key phrases in Chinese."
is religion anything but that? It's everybody's
Um,
trying to sell you their knife.
Everyone is trying to sell you their knife, but I guess the difference is it's an even greater knife because they're really promising some amazing shit. If you buy this knife, it doesn't just cut through a tin can.
Right,
You
but
have internal joy.
slices and dices and salvation. I don't know. Those are those are
Mm,
about.
pretty close. It's pretty close. So you come back from China, and you are you're under you're what I would say feels like a bit of an existential crisis. If you are
For sure, for
had
sure.
been,
Yeah.
what are your next steps? Do we go because you've described physics a bit? Is this do you go into like well maybe there's a better scientific explanation for what people should be doing or what the truth of the world is?
Yes, but I still had to lie to myself and everyone I know. I mean, I because I was so insecure in my own self. I still have to
Mm,
spend a couple of years lying to myself and everyone I know. Love Christianity, great, fully on board.
uh-huh.
And then in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm feeding this furnace of this is bullshit. This is,
Mm.
and then from that, manufacturing my own uh, justifications for everything. For
Give me an example.
like coming up with my own theories for why the universe is, or why it's even maybe some. What's the one when you're just like doesn't matter, uh, like
Nihilism.
the nihilistic atheism or something like that,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, where you're just like, uh, because that was the point in which I was just like, there's no way this bit of biology even has a possibility of understanding that. Why would you try? Like, this is this pathetic amount of biology that's been around for this limited amount of time, that's barely evolving enough to be able to create an iPhone. Like that thing is, or at that time, a sidekick. That thing is going to be be able to
You've had
understand
to
the
update this.
universe.
Do you still believe, like, I feel like that is mostly how I feel currently
Yeah.
and have for a long time. And I remember saying it to, and side note first, when you say nihilism or atheism, one thing I don't pretend is I know the definitions of
Oh
any
no,
sort
no,
of
no.
like moral code. And I perhaps knew them better when I was in college, but
I
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
think I will
Yeah.
say all of them with a question mark because I don't use
Yeah.
those terms to define myself. So yeah.
I do frequently call myself a nihilist. And by that, I mean mostly,
That you've
um,
seen
I,
Big Lebowski. You just mean
I've
that.
seen it, and I just want people to know that I really was into it. I mean, mostly, I can't perceive that this all has any sort of plan and anything we do has any sort of purpose and meaning. So I feel like because of
And when you say
the
we, you mean
general,
humans.
can perceive it. Is it we? I'm
Because
sorry. What did
like
I see?
there's that it could have any plan, meaning existence, or that there's any reason or purpose why human beings would need to figure it out because it doesn't matter. Like we're
Oh,
not.
I, I can't imagine that there's a grander plan to anything. So within nature, so it again reflects on the hubris of humanity. I'm also saying I don't think there could be this thing, which implies I think that I have a theory about this thing that is so grand.
See, I
I,
think there could be something. I just don't
uh,
think. I just don't think humans, um, even if they are any sort of integral part, that they have any control over the role that
uh,
they're playing.
100%. And it reminds me of Wittgenstein said, the idea of God is so large and I'm paraphrasing this obviously,
Uh-huh.
the idea of God is so large, even to put a name on it, God. brings a concept so big into like a container that cannot hold it. So I will not even mention the word again, and then apparently never mention the word again. So I kind of feel it's what we're discussing in some sense of it is so big that to understand it is impossible. And yet I will put this on you. It is the question that you said you would ask the maker, so it still must plague you or cause an itch within you.
Yeah, well, I think because I'd be curious if I could get exposed to that, because I do think
Uh-huh.
that there is the possibility, but I don't think
Great.
humans have any ability. I would assume that we don't. It doesn't seem to me by this point in my life that we truly have the ability to access universal truth and know that it's universal truth.
Hmm.
We may be able
Uh,
to, but we wouldn't know because we can only see
yeah.
a gnat's hair's worth of what the universe is. So yeah.
If you okay, the maker, glad. Okay, Doug, the universal truth is one of the universal truths was I created the human species to see what it was like for a conscious being to learn, they were to understand their consciousness and to see what they would do with that information.
Ah,
Congratulations, you just discovered that that's behind the curtain.
hey,
Well, how does that feel to
great.
you?
That feels fine. That would be a great answer because it definitely would take a lot of the burden off of it. It's just like, oh, great. So I would feel very good about that because I'd be able to offer myself a lot of forgiveness for the way that I behaved in life and how long it took me. I feel like I'm a very slow learner, and
Hmm.
so I think that would actually allow me a lot of peace of mind about the way that my life went.
Can I would love to explore that a little bit, if you will. Offer yourself forgiveness. Is that something you struggle with? Do you feel like Do you have guilt or shame about aspects of your life that would be absolved through being told, yeah, you didn't have a choice. It was part of this experiment.
Yeah, I'd say what for sure one of my biggest mental issues, cognitive issues that I
Mm-hmm.
struggle with is regret.
Uh-huh.
And I'll think of some of that stems from my perception of how long it takes me to learn things or to uh, get on board with basic concepts because I put up a guard or I don't want to accept things right
Mm-hmm.
out the gate. And I'm very careful. And so that I feel very slow as a human being. And so that often leads to regret where I look back and I judge myself for why couldn't you just get on board with that when you were 25 instead of when you were 40? Why couldn't you just do that? Life would have been a lot easier if you just could have accepted that and
Do you believe it would have
done
been
this.
possible?
For me, no. Well, no, not. Well, it depends. It depends on what we're talking about. So mental health issues, for example, is something that I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
have suffered with since puberty,
Mm-hmm.
since 12, 13 years old, but didn't address until my father died when I was in my
Mm-hmm.
40s.
Yeah. But I
And
guess what I'm saying, please go ahead.
so that's something that I would say, oh boy, I think if I had addressed that earlier, I do think that could have had a significant, I do think that there was a path at which I could have addressed
I
that
I
earlier.
I agree with you completely. I guess what I'm saying, and this is a more um, there. While it was certainly possible at a time in your life, perhaps to explore this, um, we don't have any free will. So actually, just when you explored it was just that's the time that all those chemicals and molecules that are you, that's just when they were able to go down that path. And I know it's a very esoteric way to view it, but to feel guilt, and this is not to absolve behavior, but it's more like you couldn't do it at 25. That's not the place you were in to do it. And what was and I'm speaking a lot of how I try to view the guilt that I carry around and how I attempt to not wallow and allow it to pull me into the ground. Um, what is that? Does that?
I don't know. I don't accepting that I sound like uh, com- I might sound foolish in this. Um, I don't accept time as something that's been well proven to a degree where I think like, oh yeah, time's real. Um,
Mhm.
so that idea of being ready at various points in your life, I don't necessarily buy into, because
Mhm.
it's a lot of the examples that I can think of right now are built around that human point of view of like what it takes for us to change or what it takes for us to make alterations in our life. Like, oh, they had to hit rock bottom before this could happen,
Mhm.
or they had to mature before they could be in this relationship.
Mhm.
I don't know that I can tie those realities to time, because you don't have anything to compare it to. You don't have you can't compare a sliding door version of my life if I had gotten qualified mental health help when I was in my
You,
20s.
you you're absolutely right. You cannot, and that's what I'm saying. Of so the function of the regret then is purely uh,
Oh yeah.
flogging yourself
Oh
because there
yeah.
is no ability to be like, well,
Right now.
got this
Right now.
regret. Let's reboot it. Let's see if we can reboot this and go that way and see what that happens. I will also posit this can be the question that you ask your maker. I'm 25. I realize I'm having some mental health problems, and
Hmm.
what would my life? And then this is an iteration that I often feel of,
Oh my
what if I
goodness.
had pursued certain treatments earlier?
But that would be so difficult if I only got one of those, because I would want to ask approximately 1,000 of those. I'd want to watch. I'd just go down the list
Oh yeah.
of regrets. I'd be like, well, what if I had transferred to this college? What if I had moved back to Chicago at this point? What if I had stayed in New York at that point? All of these things. What if I had?
It's why I love doing this. Like every time I interview somebody, I come up with a new thing that I would be like and all of them are kind of built around that same thing. There's regret, and
Oh my.
I'm at this place in my life, but where would I have been?
Regret's probably one of the most toxic things that I struggle with,
Hmm.
because I am so in love with the idea of living in the moment. It's the thing that excites me the most, is being
Hmm.
present. It's my greatest interest in improvisation and staged improvisation, is its
Hmm.
challenge is because it challenges me to be in a moment and not be
Hmm.
thinking about other moments, past or future. And yeah, so
It's truly the
I
beauty of improv, isn't it? The improvisation is a constant exercise of be here, be present, listen, be here, be present, listen, be here, be present, listen, and it's
yeah,
I feel like you people who practice it, it's a form of meditation, comedic meditation to some degree.
it truly is. And for for me, not even comedic. So it's
Mhm.
just the meditation.
People are laughing at some of this stuff other people are saying. I don't know what the fuck's going
I
on
don't
in this
know.
stage.
I wish I could understand how that works. Yeah, and I'm I might even guess that if I went back and looked at, I lined up every note or comment that a teacher or coach had ever given me regarding improv, that like 50% of them would be like, you weren't in the moment, or you weren't present, or what were you thinking about there? Were you thinking about the next funny thing that you were trying to say, or were you listening?
I think you can often do you find that because you have that ability and you've improvised for so long and you focus on mindfulness, you can very easily tell when you're talking to someone and they are not present with you?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
so much so during this quarantine time, when you could like look into people's faces and you were really being able to perceive with all of their little micro
Hmm.
things. You're like, I understand that that person is thinking about the next thing that they're going to say when I finish this
Yeah.
sentence.
And now I've just become ultimately so self-conscious and realizing, like, because as I do this, I both am trying to listen and have an idea of what I will ask.
Right.
So it is a constant balance of presence and analysis. And
And Brandon and I, for many years, worked doing producing a lot of hosted content, and
Mhm.
I got very adept at noticing how hosts work in that mode when they have to
Uh-huh.
really be selling to the camera that they're 100% listening to this person, when
Yeah.
I'm talking in their ear
Oh
and they're
yeah.
thinking of the next question, and there's no possible way that they could be getting any more than just the scantest details.
Yeah. And
Of
you're just
what's
grabbing onto any one word because you got that earwig and they're talking to you and you're like, oh man, I don't know what's going on now. And I'm
Yeah.
hungry, by the way. So it's an all kind of
And I'm
it's a
saying, I'm
nightmare.
going, wrap it up. Go ahead and wrap it up. This is the last question.
Yeah.
And then throw to camera 3. And I'm saying this, and this person is like reeling it.
Mhm.
I had a super unique experience once at South by Southwest when I was doing this, and I was uh, producing, and I'm calling the show, and the host is out there. And do you know Jose Andres, the chef?
I know the name.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Hmm. He's doing a lot of great work right now during the
Yes.
quarantine, didn't he? Like
He's
bringing
doing
food.
tons of
Yes.
work during quarantine, and before
Yeah.
that, he was doing tons of great work um, with islands that had gotten hit with uh, hurricanes and things like that in
Hmm.
Puerto Rico. I saw him change the host's life right in front of me, where she was doing the regular host thing. And have you hosted things before? You've done this before, right?
Hmm.
Where
Yes.
you've been the person interviewing someone else. So you know this,
Hmm.
that mindset. She was fully in there. He told a very compelling, very personal story about the work that he was doing in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, I think it was where he was doing that work at that time. And he was talking about what's going on there, and that that's where he's going after he leaves South by Southwest. He's like, I'm going there. And he brought her, she was kind of like listening. She was kind of listening, or, listening to it as well as she could. And then he put it straight to her and said, what are you doing after South by Southwest? Would you like to come with me? She's like, well, what? Like she got flustered for a second, and then she really heard him. He said, would you like to come to Puerto Rico and help me uh, cook food, hand out food? He's like, I've been asking some people around here. He's like, and you have great social media presence. It'd be great for you. You could put out a bunch of posts about what we're doing down there. He's like, I'd love to have you do it. And she's like, well, she's like, yeah, let me. She's like, trying to figure it out. He was like, what do you have to do right after this? And is it more important than what I'm asking you to do?
Hmm.
She did it. She
Hmm.
told me, change my flight. She went as the interview was over. She told me, change my flight. I'm going to do this as soon as South by Southwest is over. It was amazing to see happen. someone demands someone to be present. And I was impressed
Yeah.
from our conversation we just had about being present.
Yeah. I will. I find that two things.
Obscene.
I find it quite lovely, and the beauty of when you do offer yourself fully and witness someone and listen to someone. And two, it's a rude thing to ask, and
Oh
here is
yeah.
why. What do you mean? What am I doing? I don't know.
Live streaming.
Yeah, because all she's doing, she's probably just trying to work. It's like, trying to get this through, and I have a deliverable, and I got contact, I got to do this, and then I got to interview, and then that. Yes, of course, that question can be posed to anybody. What do you have to do after that's more important than feeding people who have lost their homes and are starving? Obviously, fucking nothing is more important. But still, that's not fair because I gotta do other stuff. You know what I mean? It's like this. It's beautiful and rude in the same time.
And maybe there's some universal truth in that. Maybe that's the because can you say that about, and I'm just throwing this out because I won't say that this is the truth at all. Do you think that that's the basis of all of like laws that we come up with? That the intent of those laws is both beautiful and rude?
Those laws. Okay, let's take a law specifically. You were talking
take
about
something other than murder. So take something other than
speed
murder.
limits.
Speed limits. Okay, speed limits.
You spoke earlier about you get angry. So somebody drives by. They've done all the scientific testing. That's a speed, and if you drive at that speed, people don't get killed. Why is it so hard for you to do that? So is it beautiful in the sense of where would you say the beauty comes from?
The beauty is if we all do this. The aim of this is overall wellness for the majority of people. It's aimed at this idea of, we think statistically and based on our best math and efforts and political negotiations, we think this is going to keep the most people safe.
Yeah, so there's a like the philosophy of why we're doing it is beautiful, is what you're saying. Yes.
Yes. And the rudeness, control. And the rudeness is in control. Why? There's absolutely no reason. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to hit people with my car.
Yeah.
Is the world running out of people? No. Who the fuck cares if I hit people with my car? Why should I even have to stop? I should be able to go as fast as I want. I should be able to drive any way that I want. Why is it so essential for you to control me? Why is that the thing that you think holds together humanity?
I love what I'm laughing right now is because you have such a beautiful, warm presence and such a loving view of humanity. And then there is that side of you that is very like, I remember you said to me years ago, like, you should just be able to get to do what you want to do, and the world will tell you if that's not allowed. For example, you want to beat up somebody, you want to beat up a kid, go beat up a kid, and guess what? The world will let you know that's not all right because people are going to kick the shit out of you and then kill you.
Because I believe, more people will not want you to do that than will want you to do that. But at that same point, I do think we have too many laws. And I think that laws are lazy ways because it makes me not have to have an opinion. It makes me not have to take action as an individual to participate in that ongoing conversation.
But at some point, we have to end the conversation, right? We can't. If we don't have laws of
we
all
don't.
Sorts of stuff, it's a constant conversation. We're getting nothing done, Doug. Then it's basically
that's why you have a law in Nebraska where a woman over 300 pounds can't ride a horse. Why is it?
Okay, I mean, yes, clearly there are examples of laws that should be re-examined. But I think
constantly, nothing should be able to, laws should not be able to to rest on their laurels. You shouldn't be able to. It should be constantly. We should be like trying to get that list down to like as small as possible. We should be like, instead of, can we just have 3 laws? Can we get down to the can maybe like, I think we should be way more active in, especially as it pertains to laws, because they are such an important part of how uh, large entities and systems manipulate groups.
Hmm. Are there? It sounds like you have specific ones that you find. Is it just the concept of that there is an overreach of government, of the judiciary, or are there? Because obviously things
No,
like
I want a
agreement
more
upon Roman
active
can't horse.
judiciary. I want a more active
Uh,
judiciary. The judicial system is something that I believe in and want to be more active with. If anybody who tries to avoid jury duty, I'm like, what are you talking about? That's more important than voting. You get to go
mhm.
sit in a room with another human being, another one of your citizens, and listen to the thing that's going on in their life and process that as a human being
But can I
given
say why
instruction by a
I
court. Yeah.
I dislike jury duty is not because that's the exact reason why. That's so much pressure. I'm a fucking idiot. I'm an idiot. I
No,
don't
you're a
want to.
human being. That person's an idiot. Everybody in the courtroom's an idiot. Everybody's exactly the same. That's why it's important, is because you're of your perception of yourself. Your perception of yourself is, I don't have any great legal knowledge. I don't have any right to judge this person. That's exactly why you should be there, is because
But
you are
don't you?
just an average person. There is no better person. There's no worse
But do
person.
you,
We're all
and
the
this is
same.
certainly this is certainly a thing
Equality,
that I
buddy.
struggle with. That I still deify certain people. They must know more. For example, the pilot must know more than I do. Your therapist, my therapist, they must know more. I must believe this because if I do not believe this, then it's kind of tough to be like, okay, so you're just as dumb as me, and you,
They're just as
and
human as
yet
you. They're just as human as you.
you're right. Dumb is too simplistic. That doesn't bother you.
No, and I think the diversity that you put in there matters so much. I think because of the challenge that it puts to the legal system and to the integrity of what we're calling civilization, is as much representation as possible as you can get on jury, the better. I want somebody with a 60 IQ and somebody with a 155, because
In
they're
the sense that
both,
it'll balance out, or
no, they're
not
both
balance out,
humans and they both have a right to participate in humanity. There's nothing about you, Brandon, that makes you better or more qualified to be on this planet than one of the athletes that I coach for Special Olympics, or
I agree. I would agree with that completely. Watch as I try to figure out something. I would agree with that completely. Look at
wait, is
me
it the off
hosting.
button? Is that what you're
Oh
trying
my
to figure
God,
out?
this is I don't know. I would agree with that completely, but still at the same time, this is not about believing that you're better than, but we still must have like barriers over which one must pass in order to be able to engage in certain things. I'm not talking about jury duty. I'm saying the person who has a 60 IQ and the 155 IQ, neither of them is a better person, but
Hmm.
maybe only one of them should be allowed to perform neurosurgery. Maybe, but or like only one should be allowed to be a cop, or do you know what I mean? Is it not
Now, should anybody
that?
be allowed to be a cop?
Well, I think only the person who has the 155 IQ. Probably, I don't know. Like I would hope it would be the most compassionate human.
Yeah, I can get on board with the idea of training a skill,
Yes.
but I would always be looking for a way of how can we humanize it more
Hmm.
than it's illegal for this person to
Oh, yeah. I see. Yes.
practice this. medical procedure. I'd rather it be that burden of humans to continually engage with this decision making so that we're not always reliant on laws.
It sounds like this is a universal truth that you perhaps live by, whether that humanity is equal. Like every member of humanity is worthy of the human experiment.
Yes. Well, respect for the individual is something I'm always challenging myself with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a continual conversation, and a continual debate. But then also accountability for the individual is something I struggle with and debate as well. Because I want this optimal level of individual accountability, but I also believe in an education system, a healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have it both ways, Doug. So
You can't have it both ways in the sense of that healthcare system and the education system are providing safety nets to these individuals. You're saying, or why can't you have it both ways?
well, let me try and think of a better or a good example. Boy, I've really challenged myself to take the word better out of my vocabulary.
And any reason why?
From our conversation earlier, what is the purpose of the comparison of something in the past?
Oh, interesting. More functional, I guess. But I guess like how it's actually intended is better to or more able to express my idea as opposed to value judgment.
Right. Like I do believe people should learn history, but then
Hmm.
say, well, we're not trying to do a better version of Rome. We're just trying to do the thing that we need now. We're
Yeah.
not. We're not. It's not. It. It's still. It's this. It's this thing. It's not a better version of
Hmm.
that. It's just this thing. It doesn't have to be. We can use that to help inform how we do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we're not
I
to
see what you're
call
saying.
it a better thing, better version of that. So let's say something light, like racism.
Great.
Maybe better for the conversation between you and I, bullying.
Hmm.
Plenty of studies show that a lot of bullies were bullied.
Hmm.
So it's super easy to say, all right, well, we can hold this bully accountable for their actions, but we also have to respect that there's a larger systemic issue of bullying at play where we
Hmm.
as humans, this is the way we process and react to bullying is we become bullies. So as
Oh
much
yeah.
as I want to hold that individual accountable, I also want to acknowledge, oh, there's a bigger thing at play here that
Yeah.
transcends this individual's ability to magically not become a bully.
Yeah, this is an unpalatable conversation to some degree. I feel this way very similarly about the reckoning of in Hollywood about sexual misconduct and sexual people who are sexually who have been accused of sexual misconduct. They 100% should be held accountable, but the cyclical nature of sexual abuse and misconduct is not being addressed. All you're doing is trying to pull out these certain individuals, and you're not really understanding. Well, I bet you these people also suffered sexual. A significant number also
Right.
suffered sexual abuse of their own,
But you
and then
don't
they've
know that
continued
until
this
you.
cycle over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll throw this one out to you just in terms of the spirit of positivity is uh, Trevor Project
Hmm.
that combats bullying.
Yeah.
They are they are fully open. They want people who are bullies, who have actively bullied, who have done criminal levels of bullying. They say, come on, come to our meetings, come to our hangouts,
Great.
come chill with us. You're going to hear stories of people that have been bullied. We want to hear your story of this time when you horribly bullied somebody. We want to hear it because
Hmm.
that organization recognizes everybody has to be part of the conversation. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about, for my opinion, when you're talking about any issue, make everybody part of the conversation. If somebody takes a plane and flies it into a building and kills 3 or 4,000 human beings, you going and beating that person up or you go and blowing that person up is not going to do anything for humanity. It does nothing for the overall good of humanity. You saying, hey, I don't know who did this, but you obviously have some anger towards buildings or towards the people in those buildings or towards the country that those buildings were in. Let's create a conversation. We'd love to talk to you about what's going on.
But at the same time, that agent has to be culpable, no?
I don't know. We only can get to the bottom of that with a conversation. We're not going to we won't find anything by shooting that person in the head.
We won't. And I'm going to direct this again to, it feels like then you believe that it seems to be a universal truth that you live by, that there is a positive arrow of light for humanity, that there is, like you implied, that it won't benefit humanity, that won't make humanity, if we go and we kill them or beat them up, it won't improve. It's not going to help humanity.
I think
So
that's a
you
goal that I have.
necessarily,
And that's a personal. I would say that's a personal
uh,
goal. A personal goal that I have is the idea of trying to reduce suffering or trying to create greater understanding or just engaging with humanity for the very purpose of understanding more, because we understand so little. Let's try and understand as much as we can. It's the thing I like. It's the thing I don't like about religious organizations is like so many just don't want to go any further. They just want to stop. They want to go, oh yeah, once you reach the end of the book, done.
I think that's why some people find the appeal to it, because there's comfort in, like, the work's been done. They know I don't have to kind of
Right.
re-examine this.
They already figured it out.
Yeah.
But like what I love about gravity, there's 6
Hmm.
active prevailing theories of gravity. 6.
Yeah.
Each one of them slightly different, slightly little nuanced piece of math. And every day people are like actively working on these to try and figure out, well, maybe it's 0.00007. I don't know. Let's give it a try. Let's keep trying. Like,
everybody's
there's a
so
bunch of
joyous in
people
this
out
lab
there.
that you're working in. Everybody, I love this gravity lab. Everybody's just like, I fucking love work today. I'm so happy. And then Jose Andres shows up. He's like, what are you doing that is so important that you can't stop studying gravity and go feed homeless people? Nothing.
One of the best debates that I ever saw at a TED event was, I could be wrong, but I want to say it was like the granddaughter or daughter of Jacques Cousteau. And this gal had just gotten up and talked about, I think the Cassini project, the Cassini rocket that was going around Saturn, talking about that. And she got there and said something to the extent of, with no disrespect to this talented scientist, I think it is ridiculous and offensive for us to spend any money going out, any money, resources, and time going out into space when we barely know anything about the planet that we were living on. Then she just launches into like the lack of effort that's put into understanding what's going on in the ocean. It's just like, it's 3/4 of the planet. We know nothing about what's going on down there.
Why did you like that? Why did you that
Because
register like
because she
resonate
was
with you?
because she wasn't trying to like hate on this person, but she obviously felt very, very, and this is like another scientist who's doing, impressive and ambitious work. And she's just trying, like, I don't want to hate on you, but it's such a crime. But she also was so passionate about the fact that it's complete waste of time and energy and resources.
So was it the passion that you resonated with you, or was it because you believed that what she said strongly and it was nice to hear it reflected?
No, it was the passion because
Mm. Do you love like Hitler's 1938 speeches then? Because those are some fucking passionate speeches. Like if you're just looking for passion, Doug. I mean, you gotta.
I do think passion is a great mechanism for understanding human motivation.
Mhm.
I don't attend rallies and big events. I don't because I don't think humans change for real in large groups.
Mhm.
I and I think it's mostly and I think that that's unproductive
Can I ask you, as we come to a close here, is
for the
there
first
a
for the first hour. First hour's coming to a
first
close
first hour's coming to a
of
close?
6.
I can't wait to dive in really in the next couple of hours. Is there a universal truth? I want to know. I mean, you've kind of. Is there one that you can say this is the one that I hope that it's true because it is the one that I live by, or that I am working on living by? And you've alluded to a few, but I want to know. Um, be a good person. Leave it better than you found it. Are any of these, what would you say is the one that when you get up in the morning, you're intending to do?
My intent is the individual matters, and so do I. Probably for the
Would it
past
be,
5 years, that's been the one that I've been working on the most.
so even if this creator says none of that is true, none of it, does that even matter? Because it seems like you, and I could be projecting, you seem to be getting a sense of internal peace by having this be your guiding principle, or at least.
It's a mechanism I'm using right now based on best available knowledge. But if I had new knowledge from an external source that I trusted that exposed me to the fact that it wasn't important, I'd like to think that I could change. I'd like to think that
So it is not just the value that it brings to your life. It is more, you are more concerned with whether or not that is the true meaning of the grand life with a capital L.
concerned. It's the thing. It's what I'm operating on based on my best available knowledge and processing of information right now. So it's just what I am today.
And you would be fine were it, and were you told that is incorrect, you would, rather than realizing that your life is good believing this, you would rather engage in the one that you're like, okay, well, then what is the correct one? I will tell you it is
Absolutely.
this. Pure selfishness is your dedication, and all humans are not good, and the individual is useless. It is the group and who can dominate the most. That is the purpose of this.
Yeah,
Would
I'd
you
love.
align
Yeah,
yourself?
I'd
So,
want that information. And by the way, I don't believe humans are good. I don't believe in good and bad because I just believe in
mhm.
existence. So um, I'm just trying out the idea that individuals.
You're testing it. You're testing this out for.
I am.
Yeah.
In my best moments, I have a scientific method approach to life where I want to be trying things. I want to be having hypotheses and experimenting in my own life to see what I can think that I figure out. But if
That can lead to, if you really are dedicated, that can lead to some pretty dark shit, can it not? I'm going to take a scientific approach of pure hedonism, and that will engage. And so for the next 6 months, I'm going to
Mhm.
see if getting high on fentanyl and masturbating all day, if that is going to be
Right, I
what
could.
the way, and then afterwards do an assessment. Okay, this is how I felt. This is how it feels like, to truly fully appreciate that scientific approach, you're going to have to allow for some really odd ways of going through the world or viewing the world.
Right, but also I think there's going to be some successful Jim Carrey comedies out of it.
What do you mean?
He had Yes Man or something like that, where he just said yes to
uh,
everything for a day or for a year or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
It just seems like wacky. It seems like a wacky premise.
I I wish in that he actually got high on fentanyl and masturbated for 6 months. It's just
Maybe he
like
did. Maybe there is a movie in which he did that.
first
I haven't
draft.
seen all of his movies, but just real quickly, I will say,
Yeah.
like, just in terms of that darkness, it has challenged me on that darkness, but or on, and again, what I would say is lightness, because I think light is the thing that reveals things. I think darkness is the best thing ever. I mean, darkness is wonderful. It's the thing that I think connects us
Well,
all, and what I believe is the right at this point is probably the strongest connective tissue of the universe. I think we evolved to darkness. We evolved past light, but
too dark. I need you to be less metaphorical. What does that even mean? We evolve to darkness. What is that going to happen to humanity? Is evolved towards darkness in 1,000 years? What is it going to look like differently because that's what we've evolved towards?
it's a great question. No, don't you think light is what brought us out of darkness?
I don't know if I've ever thought about.
Like
I
we live because of the
Yeah,
sun. We have
yes,
our biology evolved because of the sun.
yes. So we're are you saying because, and then so therefore we are all united by darkness because we came from this place originally? Is that
Yeah, well, and conceivably before that light,
there was just darkness and nothingness?
yeah, maybe it was all dark matter.
I don't know what to do with that.
Well, perhaps you will go to sleep tonight in a dark room.
But what
Perhaps
does
you will
that
think
mean?
about what we do with people that we perceive as no longer living when we put them into dark places, or we burn
Because
them
we
because
can't
we
do what
say,
they're.
well, they are no longer in need of this light, so we'll dig a hole and we'll put them into the darkness. We'll return them to the darkness.
Unrelated, but I think I have this thought frequently. Isn't it weird that like over a large, not a large, but a significant portion of the Earth, about 6 feet down, there's just a bunch of bodies. Like
Right.
it's like there's just a bunch of bodies. Like it's same thing with like everybody's face. Essentially, like it's a quarter of an inch between you, me, and the Crypt Keeper. That's all. That's fucking it. Like your skin and your skull are right there. It's
It's
there's
just like it's so
so
bonkers.
little.
I love I love a graveyard. I think they're just ridiculous things.
Mhm.
You're from what area are you
Upstate
from?
New York.
Upstate New York. Okay.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, my goodness, New York, Boston, like some of these places with some nice good old cemeteries.
Oh yeah, my wife is from Plymouth, and they have some like people who were buried there from the late 1600s.
And we keep this land that going. Like we're just like, why are you keeping this? Put a house there. Put a homeless shelter there. My goodness. You're wasting
Yeah,
prime real estate in the middle of Boston for fucking gravestones? You guys are
your
assholes.
extent for humanity ends with after like once you're no longer human in your mind, it's done for you, huh?
Oh my
You're
goodness.
just fucking bones.
I when I look around Los Angeles at like the amount of land and energy that's put
Uh,
into maintaining the land, the watering, we're in a drought and we're watering cemeteries. Like, who,
yeah.
how, I mean, talk about rude. I mean, there's literally homeless people living right outside of that cemetery. You just be like, you know what? We're just going to take down this fence and you can just set up here.
I can't wait. I'm glad we have hour two all planned of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I have good news for you, Doug. You have not passed on.
Oh,
You are alive. So, congratulations.
that's
Um,
nice.
do you have any questions or final thoughts for me?
Um, how do you perceive the threshold between life and death? Do you think that they are different things?
Do I
Do you
believe
think
they are different things?
do you think life and death are two different things? And maybe that's maybe the obtuse way of saying, do you think you have an essence or a soul?
I will defer back to uh, the outside understanding of the potential of human understanding, and I think the
Hmm.
concept of a soul is the idea of consciousness. Trying to understand consciousness is highly problematic, and that is just a bullshit answer I say because where am I speaking from? As a scared human being, boy do I hope there's a soul. Boy do I really hope that something goes beyond this. As in my moments of hardcore rationality, are you fucking nuts? You're a bag of atoms. There's nothing beyond you, dumbass. So
So
it
let me
really
follow that.
depends.
So let me follow
Yeah.
that. If we're a bag of atoms, do you believe in atomic theory? Do you believe that electrons and protons and neutrons make up everything? And
Yes.
yeah, so that perhaps everything is made of energy. Is that
Yes.
safe enough to
Sure.
say? That would include a rock and
Mm-hmm.
everything that in you and the wall behind you and the watch on your wrist
Mm-hmm.
and everything. So in that, can you accept that the energy that you contain right now that allows you to be able to process the thought or hold a conversation with me, that type of energy could exist outside of you?
A 100%. But I will say that's not satisfying to me, in the sense of my energy could be transferred to a tree. I like my energy being inside this enclosed box. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It's not satisfying to be like y-
But
that.
this is
Yeah.
why I 100% accept universal ghosts and things like that, because I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
sure. Why not? If
Hmm.
it exists here, why couldn't it also exist in floating out there? Like there could be,
Yeah.
for all I know, that's inspiration or that's imagination. Like, I heard an author one time talk about inspiration like imagine a house at the bottom of a valley and a
Hmm.
tiger comes racing down the hill and the both ends of the doors of the house are open and the tiger races through the house and out the other side. And if you're in the
Hmm.
house and you're able to catch the tiger, then for as long as you can wrestle with that tiger before it gets
Yeah. You
free and
grab
bolts
the
out the
tiger's
door.
tail.
Yeah, is that you? Yeah,
Yeah.
this is something. Do you who said that?
Yes. It's big magic. It is. I forget. It's a poet who I believe originally said it was like I'm chasing the tiger's tail, and essentially, like once that inspiration,
Yeah,
that tiger's there, I have to immediately grab that tail and hold on as long as I can,
yeah.
because it will just go. It will go. So if I don't chase it and catch it, it's gone forever. Yeah.
So for me, like, who knows? That might be all the ghosts of people that had ideas flying around, and they just happened
But
to fly
that
through
to
my
me
head.
just feels like you're engaging in the same thing that religion does, of you're
Oh, I
coming
but
up with
but
an allegory for something because it's a nice story, but
but
you're not prescribing morality to it.
yes, right, absolutely. But I guess I just wanted to know if you thought that what you have, as much as you can perceive what you have going on in your body, could possibly exist outside of your body.
I do. I just don't think it'll be in the same sense. And I think that's when people speak about an afterlife. I think what they
They know
think
nothing
will,
about.
but the hope is it's not just like, oh yeah, you will exist as something else. You want to exist as you and what you know and what you feel, right? It's not as like you do. There's an
Right.
afterlife, and here's the thing: everybody in their afterlife is I don't know, Dwayne the Rock Johnson. You do get to exist, but you all become Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and all his thoughts and his mind and his experiences. Is that satisfying? Is that the afterlife that you were hoping for?
Uh, and then that makes me think of Ray Kurzweil, I think, who said like,
Yeah, yeah.
if somebody, you know, transcended or reached a singularity with technology, it would be like 7 seconds before they couldn't even tell what a human being was. So they'd just be like, they would they wouldn't even be able to perceive humanity. It would just
Be,
be like after 1 second, human people would just be like ants, and then like a second after that, they would just be so
because
far
it's so
past.
grand. Because
Because
like
they'd
this,
be
I
processed, because at the singularity you'd be processing energy at that quantum level. So you'd be your your consciousness would be growing as a fractal.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
At,
This for some reason that made me think of people speak about how could there be ghosts? How could there be ghosts? Because if there were, wouldn't they speak to humans more? Or wouldn't they come and speak to us more? And I thought, well, they're not bound by time, so in their mind, we're also dead with them. So why would they come and talk to us now when like you're right next door to them because you're also dead and a ghost? Does that make
right?
sense?
Or
Uh,
how egotistical to think that they haven't. Maybe got better things to do. Maybe there's way more
yeah,
interesting things you can do as a ghost than sit around and talk to a bunch of humans.
yeah, exactly. Doug, you are truly a pleasure. I very much appreciate your time, sir.
Somewhere between a pleasure and annoyance, and I'm happy to live there. But